My guest is Ernie Rubinstein. Welcome to the show, Ernie.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, you've been involved in the media. You were a producer of Cats. You've been in all kinds of different things. You know the media. We're a piece of the media. How are we important to the Jewish community, to Israel, or are we important?
We're important because we are the beaten up. We are easy to beat up. The one thing
you mean our show is easy?
No, I'm sorry. I referred to the Jewish people. The one thing that we have not done a good job with over the last few years is to portray ourselves in a positive way in the media. We have been more or less being passive as opposed to aggressive in educating the world about Jewish people. Times have changed. Of course, people have forgotten what happened 60 years ago. You're into new generations. The continuing education that is required to detail what Israel is about and what the Jewish people are about is not being done.
Do you think we make a significant contribution to that, or are we just a small puddle in it?
No, I think it is a significant contribution. First of all, the thousands of people that do watch your show are being educated, and it really is about education. What does each generation have if they don't have education? It is up to each generation to educate the next generation, and that's, I think, an important function of what your show is doing.
But if we try to get the broad spectrum, but you don't want to get an ego about yourself and pretend you're doing things that you're on. If I'm being critical, do we change people's mind, or do we just address already people who are convinced and are interested in Israel anyway? And so we're not really getting anywhere to a broader audience.
Well, I think that is the challenge. How do we get to the broader audience? How do we continue the education? How do we educate others, not just our own Jewish people? And that's an important aspect too, because as you know, as generations become more assimilated, they tend to forget some of the basic elements. But also to broaden the audience, that's necessary. It's not just about Jewish people, because Israel and the Jewish people are important to Christians as well as Jewish people.
And others, because I'd say half our audience is probably not Jewish, and they come from all kinds of people. I know when traveling TTC, you meet lots of people and they talk to you, and they're from all kinds of backgrounds.
Life, cultures, religions are universal. The more we understand, the better we will all be.
With that, I want to thank you, Ernie, for being on the show. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
My guest is Michael Kainan. She's works with the company that markets the patents and deals with the inventions at the Hebrew University. But first I want to talk to you about the university, because we have to know where all these patents come from. Now, where does the university rank in Israel and the world?
The Hebrew University is Israel's #1 research university, with rankings number 12 worldwide. And this fact is very helpful for us, of course, but it starts from good research. And it starts from the fact that in this university, in biotechnology patents, we're number 12 in the world according to the Milken Institute ranking, second to only University of London outside of the US. And to that effect, it's also very helpful when we're looking at grants ranking. We rank in the European Union ERC ranking number 2. That's between Cambridge and Oxford. So it's nice. It's a good neighborhood to be in.
Oh, that's in grants. But that's about the research part of the university,
right,
and in these particular areas.
Right.
But as a university, you wouldn't rank that high in the world, I don't think. The university's in the top 100, but I don't think it's number 12.
No, I'm
it's
sorry.
It's in the research aspect, just to
right,
make it clear. That's
no, you're absolutely right. We're number 64 when it's worldwide.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's beautiful. It's the only Israeli university in the first 100.
Yeah,
that's true.
And if you talk about tens of thousands of universities, or even the top 8,000, to be in the top 100 is phenomenal
right,
achievement. Now, the number of patents you also rank very high, and it's not just as a university research place, and it's not only in grants, but it's also a number of patents Hebrew University gets.
Right. From the year Yissum was founded in 1964.
Yeah, well, we better stop and explain what Yissum is about.
Okay. Yissum. Yissum is the Hebrew word for application or for implementation. And our company was founded to take care of all the technology, all the know-how that comes from the staff of the Hebrew, the professors, the doctors, and so on, to take all that knowledge, protect it with an intellectual property, and then take this intellectual property to the next step into the industry so they can make use of it in the real world, and we can bring back the money to support the research and development inside the university.
Now, Hebrew University was one of the pioneers in doing that with universities. I think Weizmann
Right.
was in Hebrew University, because until you did it, I don't think any other universities were doing that. Were they?
There was one university in Wisconsin who actually did it before.
Oh, I see.
In 1925, and then you're right, it's the Weizmann Institute in 1959, and Yissum is only third in the world in 1964.
And now, of course, every university or any research university has this kind of arm that takes care of patents and joint ventures and all that kind of thing.
Right.
Now, how is Yissum structured related to the university? It's not a subsidiary of the university,
It is.
It is.
It's
just
a
as
wholly
totally
owned
subsidiary.
private company that's completely in charge by the university. Our board of directors is appointed by the university.
But it has a separate board.
It has a separate, we have our separate board. It has a minority of only 3 seats to the university. Everyone else are business representatives from various fields. But we are a wholly owned subsidiary of the Hebrew U.
So you report back to the board of directors of Hebrew University. Yeah. And you get funds from various things. Let's talk about your patents.
Okay.
How many patents do you manage?
In 46 years, we've applied for over 6,000 patents, which are the equivalent, if you look at inventions, it's about 1,700 inventions, different inventions. And this is kind of the inventory that we run with. Some are with business partners and some are managed by us internally.
But if you take these 1,700 patents, how many are high producing in terms of money?
Oh, those are always, the very few selected ones.
That's right.
The very few.
What, 20 or 30?
Oh, I never counted them, but I'll dare say that it's in the low, like below 100 by far.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine, because you do so many and the few produce all the money.
And plus you have to remember it's very young technology. This is technology that's barely out of the, it's barely on its own 2 feet. So it's just very young, and you can't really know how it's going to turn out.
Now, another source of revenue is not only the patents, but you joint venture with companies and do startups, I assume. Right. How do you arrange that? Do you get a minority of shares? Do you get seats on the board? How does it work?
So when we start a startup company or a subsidiary between us and a big company, or between us and an entrepreneur, or even between us and the Office of the Chief Scientist of Israel via the incubator program, what we try to do is have always the royalties on the technology itself, and then other arrangements such as milestones on the achievements of the researcher and equity, actual stock in the company. This stock is normally half and half between us and the researcher.
Oh, so the researcher gets half of the stock that you get.
Yes,
I
exactly.
see. So it's a real incentive for the...
And in most cases, they also work for the company on a very partial job, of course, but they also give to the company a lot of consulting hours.
Now, the revenues that come in, say, whatever it is, 40 million, whatever the figure is, how is it divided up? Does the company decide what to do with it, Yissum?
So, in fact, the Hebrew University writes it all in its regulations. And in fact, it's a very leading institute in that understanding that if you give the researcher a good incentive, it'll be easier for them to work with the Technology Transfer Office. So Hebrew University regulations say that whenever we get royalties from a company, the researcher takes back home privately to their own pocket 40% of what we get. 20% more goes directly to this researcher's laboratory for whatever research is performed there at the moment. And the rest of the 40% is channeled back to the Hebrew University's research and development budget through Yissum.
And what about the cost of running your budget? Does that come out of that last 40%?
Exactly, yeah. It's a very tight budget that's being approved a year in advance by our board of directors, and that budget is from those 40%.
I think, so all the revenues it pays for your costs is a small margin of that.
Yes.
What about other kinds of possibilities of Yissum doing creative work? For instance, I found in talking to the researchers here, they really need postdocs. Do you have any influence on getting companies that you partner with to give postdocs? Is that a possibility?
Well, we try because we bring a lot of research collaborations back to the researchers. And for example, a big research agreement can bring between 3 and 5 postdoc positions to this laboratory, to a particular laboratory that's involved with the company that's paying for its research in the field that's interesting for the industry. But we're not involved directly in personnel of the university.
So the university handles all that part.
Right.
But you might have an influence on the company and say,
Yeah.
look, cough up some postdocs.
Pay up.
Yeah, pay up. If you want our patents, you want to do business with us, help
In
the
many
lab.
cases, in many cases, even when the main agreement with the company is a licensing agreement on a technology that's already in existence, it's not a research agreement, but a research agreement will become a part of the main license agreement in order to support future research efforts in this laboratory.
What about the public relations aspect? One of the things is you interview the scientist here, and he said, oh yeah, I have to do this job, we go out and publicize what I'm doing, otherwise we won't get money back to the lab. Do you play a role in that publicity? You are, clearly you're doing this, and that's part of a role, but I'm talking about as a larger part of your mandate.
We do our publicity when it comes to our part of the job. So when it comes to their part of the job, we usually stop their publicity, right? They want to run and tell science and nature about all the beautiful things that they've achieved. And we tell them, please no, wait one more second. Let us patent it first. Let us protect it in an intellectual property. But then once a beautiful agreement is signed with a big company or with a small company or to create something new, we run to the press like hell. And we tell them, come see what we've done. We took this molecule that no one knew existed and we gave it to this beautiful startup company, and now they're going to continue research on Alzheimer's or diabetes or cancer or whatever it is that they're doing.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about some specific examples of that, but we'll take a break first, and then I'll come back and give you a chance to think of which examples are the best one to say, here's what we did on this one, and look at the results.
Okay.
Okay, a break.